Hello and welcome back to Edin Nuir. This is going to be the first of a multi-part video to try and keep it short, and if you just want to refer back to certain parts of it then you can. I'm going to be doing a short series on a stagecoach or freight cart or whatever it might be called. There are simpler wagons and what have you have been covered by DM Scotty in the past, so I'm not really going to touch on things like that because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So for making these, we're going to start off with the wheels, and for making this, I've gone with a group of materials: toothpicks. There's some balsa wood dowel, although you could use a hardwood doweling. I just use balsa wood because it's cheap and easily available for me, and it's easy to work with. And then there is some 35mm PVC pipe that I've cut into roughly. I think these are about 7.5mm. So yeah. The doweling that I'm using is 14mm, and then there's just toothpicks, and then PVA glue and hot glue are used to fix it all together. So all I'm using with is the doweling for. I'll get back to English in a moment. All I'm using the doweling for is like the hubs of the wheels, and then the external rim of the wheels are these pieces of pipe, so it will sit together something kind of like this. Now, to make it a little bit more stable and I suppose a little bit more accurate, if that sort of thing matters to you, I'm going to make it so that the pieces of toothpick or cocktail stick, whichever you prefer to call them, are inset into. I'll keep going off camera again. They are inset into the hubs. So to do so, you could use a small drill bit. I've misplaced mine at the moment, so I'm using what I was going to describe as an alternative. But a 2mm drill bit is perfect for a toothpick. If you're using balsa wood, be very careful because it will just split apart, and if you apply too much pressure, so let your tools do the work. I'm just using a small conical file, and I'm just going to bore holes. I'm not going to worry about measuring too much because well, I don't think it's that wildly necessary. I've already gone ahead and made a few of the finished articles. Yes, they're a little bit off centre, but once the cart's actually assembled, only furious nitpickers are going to be jumping all over it, and to those I say boo. Right, so 6 vaguely equidistant holes away from each other. I mean, I can just use the file itself to work out there should be another hole this side, etc. So I'm going to go ahead and do those for the hubs, and I'll be back in a moment. Okay, so I've got the hubs all set up now. I didn't mention it beforehand, but the hubs are roughly 75mm as well. But actually, I think a couple of them are ever so slightly more, but that won't matter in the grand scheme of things. So now it's going to go ahead to the toothpicks, which will be the spokes for the wheel. If I recall correctly from my originals, the guesstimated size of each section wants to be about 15mm. So you get, I think, 4 or 5 sections. Once you've trimmed off the points, you get about 4 or 5 sections out of a single stick. So I'll just go ahead and mark that up, and you're going to need 6 of these per wheel, and for a stagecoach you're going to need 4 wheels. So no, you get 4 sections per thing. So you're going to, I'll get those marked up, I'll get them chopped out, and then I'll be assembling the wheel. Back in a moment. Alright then, so I've got my 4 rims. A note about the rims: when you've cut these out of PVC, you can use a hacksaw. I've used a bandsaw to cut them, but you can cut them with a hacksaw. They might end up a bit rougher, but c'est la vie. When you do cut them though, they will end up with furry bits all around the inside. If you just take just a sharp knife, a box cutter or a utility knife, and just run it around the edges, being careful not to cut yourself obviously, all the furred edges and whatever else will just come away, and you'll end up with a nice clean wheel trim. Anyway, back to the task at hand. So we have our pile of pieces. We have 4 hubcaps. We have 4 wheel trims. So my glue gun is cooking at the moment. So first of all, I'm going to go ahead and start dipping. I've just got some neat PVA glue off to one side. Take one of the hubs, and I'm just going to dipping the cocktail stick into the PVA. You can wipe off any excess with just the tip of your finger. Oh, and I've gone off camera again. Now at this stage, depending on how deep you've mined with your file or you've drilled with your drill bit, your toothpick sections will probably end up being a little bit proud in some areas. They might be too deep in some other areas. The deep ones are more of a problem because it means you're probably going to have to cut new spokes or maybe backfill the hole somewhat if it's a real problem. It's probably best to just make some new spokes. However, if they're too long, which is kind of what I've intentionally done by making them 15mm, I think the actual measurement you require is probably closer to 12 for most of them, but it could be 12 for some, 13 for others. It could be worse. But if I then take my spokes and I lay the plastic wheel rim over it, you can see it's sitting on top of the spokes. So what I will do once the PVA is set for this, lay it over, and I will then remeasure all of these spokes and just trim them again using the pliers as cutters. So that it's nice and simple. All it is dip and plug and clean up, and then the boring part, which is the weighting. So I'll go up once again. It'll be a jump cut, and I'll get this done. I'll have to leave this for a while so that it'll be cured enough to play with, and then I will trim them all down, because you don't want to see that bit. It's just trimming them down, which, as I said before, it's putting the plastic pipe section, aka God damn it, English, the wheel trim, is that what I'm thinking? The wheel rim onto it, and then remeasuring and clipping, and then it will be the final assembly, and then I'll do just a very brief part on painting it, because painting it is just as easy as putting these things together, and then we should be done. And the great thing with these wheels is I had a bit of an issue with the I'm just going to keep waffling while I glue these together, actually. You'd never believe this is unscripted. With cutting the balsa wood sections, I had a couple of them break apart when I was drilling into them. However, what I've decided to do is cut an extra couple of pieces of the PVC, the large PVC pipe, the 35mm PVC, and I have decided, speaking of a split, be very careful, pick up a little bit of PVA glue, just try and work it into because I've just formed a split in this hub, and it can be salvageable just by working some PVA glue in there and pressing it back together. So this is going to take a while to glue, but yeah, you can repair them. It's not that much of a problem. Balsa wood is really easy to work with for that sort of reason as well. Anyway, so the ones that I broke, I'll bring one onto camera just before I cut this section. So the broken ones, I like to have in my arsenal some set dressing pieces that are more bespoke for certain environments, like making a stagecoach. You're not going to find a bloody stagecoach in a dungeon, you're not going to find it in a keep of a castle, but you might find one on a trade road, or you might find one in a city, just in the streets in a city maybe. And but something that you might find just dotted around is just maybe at the side of the road there could be some broken, they're like some old wagon wheels or something, like half buried or something. And this is the remnants of a hub that split apart while I was working on it. But I've gone ahead and fitted it with spokes anyway, and then I'm going to trim some PVC and make it just look like a broken cartwheel, and then that can go into my ever-expanding array of miscellaneous scatter terrain, because I like that kind of thing. I like being able to add all little, even though some of it can get a bit repetitive. Like I think I've got about a dozen doors, of which I think I've got 4 different types. I mean, I'm always adding more to it, but that's all I've got at the moment, so it can get a little bit repetitive. But yeah, so that's all of my hubs with their spokes fitted. I have to leave those for a while now to cure, so I'll be cutting this here, and we'll come back and we'll fit the rest together. See you then. Alright, so I've gone ahead, I've fitted the the spokes to the wheel rims now. All I used, as I said before, was just some hot glue. Because I jumped ahead a little bit, you might not be able to see. I'll turn on another light and see if that helps. Nope, you're not going to see very much except for little amorphous blobs. But yeah, it's because PVA glue might not bond to the plastic of the pipe particularly well. So I've made 2 sets of the wheels because there's actually 2 types of cart large carts that I'm going to make. One of them being more like a haulage cart and one of them being more like a stagecoach. So all I'm going to do now is just finish up painting them, and I'm just going to use a couple of colours for this. One of which is just a old. That'll do. I'm using some old Games Workshop paints, but this is just a dark metal, and this is just a lighter brown, even though it's separated in the pot. It just needs a bit of a mix. And then I'm also using just like an Acrylics Basics burnt umber paint, which is what the hubs and spokes are going to be made of. I mean, an argument if you did the I've got some old PVA glue on my palette. If you made the hubs out of styrene or out of anything that was more solid, like anything that wasn't porous, like the wood that I've used, then the argument could be made like you could paint it to look like it was metal. But I've used balsa wood for everything because I like balsa wood. I like working with it. So I'm just going to give it all a flat coat of this brown. Give it a highlight of the slightly lighter brown, which they might be Games Workshop paints. They cost an arm and a leg, so probably not best if you're just buying them for making D&D set dressing. But any like hobby store craft paints and that are going to be fine. I suppose even some oil paints might be okay as well. Can't vouch for that, but I can't think off the top of my head why any of them will be a particular problem. So this will be the end of part 1 of my so there you go, you got dark browns all in there, and that already looks like a wheel, although it looks a little bit dark and dingy. I'm not going to paint all of the wheels up right now. I'm just going to kind of skip around and do one of them to show you how that looks. So the next part of the this endeavour is making the just giving the paint a bit of a shake there. And the next part of this endeavour will be to make the chassis for the carts. And both of the carts are going to be painted the same way, built the same way in regards to a chassis. Yeah. I did think of some alternative things for the wheel rims, which would be you could use a sturdy cardstock, but you might need to reinforce that fact with some more spokes, or you could even use some corrugated cardboard and then just go in with hot glue and just seal up the edges like you've seen in DM Scotty's or DMG's or basically anyone else who works with cardboard on their videos. You can just seam it up and it will look just as good, and it will save you having to go out and find and buy balsa wood. As I keep saying, and I'll probably keep saying in upcoming videos, I like to work with balsa wood. I have got quite a large supply of cardboard as well, but you find something you like, you're going to stick with it. With any hobby that works. So make sure to get the not quite sure, see if I can bring a little bit more light to the situation. Making sure to get like the inside of the wheel rim as well, because even though the inside of the top part of the wheel won't be particularly visible, because obviously it's like top down. If you're looking at a wheel like this, then you see the inside of this rim. You don't see what's way up here. But paint it all anyway, because the reason why even with the chassis, I'm going to be somewhat detailing the underside of the chassis, is because if ever I wanted to do like a attack on the road or something, there could be an upturned wagon or cart, and it's not just going to be a flat bottomed piece of wood. So there, that's another colour down. Yeah, because a lot of my scatter scenery is made to be multifunction. because I don't want to have to make like 6,000 different items to cover every eventuality. I would rather make a few items and make it so that they can be used in different ways. So right now I'm just gonna, the texture that's on the hub, I was just dusting that with this lighter brown. But the spokes, you don't want to paint all of the spokes. It is just the exposed, like the outward facing edges, and then just a splash just to give a little bit of definition on the hub itself, and I'm going to call that a wagon wheel. So that is what I'm dubbing as inventing the wheel. So the next part is to go ahead and make the chassis for the two wagons, well, the wagon and the stagecoach that I'm making. That's going to be probably a single part video because it is actually a lot simpler, using a lot of the tools and same materials. But pretty much any time that I say that I'm using balsa wood, you can substitute balsa wood for cardboard. Just with a little bit of savvy and know-how when it comes to working with cardboard, like don't get it too wet because it will warp out of shape, etc, etc. Anyway, I'm getting onto my waffle copter again. I'm gonna go ahead and get these wheels done, and then I'm gonna get onto making the chassis. So I'll see you in part 2 of making a stagecoach / freight wagon. I'll see you in the next video.